In this Autodesk Maya tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can rig a leg with inverse kinematics in Maya. Then we'll add controls for things such as foot peel and toe tap so you can animate and control this rig with inverse kinematics in Maya. The first thing to do is to switch from modeling to rigging. This gives us access to menu options at the top that we don't have in the modeling workspace. Can also select rigging here, and it gives us some quick shortcuts on the shelf in Maya so we can choose different rigging options. When you're adding joints in Maya, you need to be looking at an orthogonal view. So press spacebar, and then here I'm going to select the side view. This is the side view of this leg, and then I can just move it into view. Another thing you may want to change is under shading, X-ray joints. Then we can see the joints in front of the mesh. This is very important when you're laying out your joints in Maya for rigging. Then simply select joints. Now I can select and place joints on my character. We want to place the joints where the actual structure of the character generally is. So here I'll place a hip joint, then I'll place a knee joint, an ankle joint, a joint at the ball of the foot, and then a toe joint. Now I have the joints I need, and I'll label them in the outliner. If you don't see the outliner, just click this icon. We have the hip joint, the knee joint, the ankle joint, the ball joint, and the toe joint. Next, I'll select curves and create a circle. This circle shows up right at the bottom of the foot. Then if I press spacebar and I look in the perspective view, I can press R to scale this. And this can be my foot controller. You can also change the shape of this by going to Control Vertex, select these vertex points, then you can move them in and change the shape of your foot control. Once you're happy with the shape, go back to Object Mode. I'll label this circle Foot Control. Now that we have a foot control and we have our joints, we need to add inverse kinematics so this actually animates. Press spacebar and go to the side view. Down here, this is our foot control. Now we need to add inverse kinematics. To do that, select skeleton, create IK handle, and make sure you click this box. This allows us to choose rotate plane solver. Then select the top hip joint and the ankle joint. This automatically creates an IK handle, and now we can move this joint. Once again, select skeleton, create IK handle, and click the box. This time we don't want rotate plane solver, we want single chain solver. Then select the ankle and go to the ball of the foot. We need to create one more IK handle, and we can do that by clicking rigging and this IK handle icon. Select this, click the ball of the foot, and then go to the toe. Now we have 3 IK handles. Over here in the outline, we will label these IK handles. We can label it ankle IK, ball IK, and toe IK. We are going to parent these inverse kinematic handles to the foot control, but first, notice if you click the foot control in the channel box, it is not zeroed out. Click polymodeling, then you can delete transformations and clear history. In the outliner, select all 3 inverse kinematics, use the middle mouse button, and drag them into foot control. If I select the foot control, all of the inverse kinematics come with it. Now we're going to create pivots so we can control different aspects of the foot. First, select the ball IK and the toe IK and press Ctrl G or Command G to group. We'll label this group toe tap pivot. If I press D and then hold V, I can move this toe tap pivot and it'll snap to vertex. I want to snap to this joint, but notice that it is snapping everywhere on the mesh. So temporarily, I'm going to hide the mesh. To do that, select the mesh and then press Ctrl H. To bring the mesh back, simply select it and then press Shift H. So I'll press Ctrl H to hide the mesh. Now, if I select the toe tap pivot, press D on my keyboard and hold it, hold V, and then I can snap it right to the ball of the foot. So now the pivot point is right there. Next, I'll select ankle and I'm going to group it on its own. Ctrl G, and this ankle pivot will be called the heel peel pivot. Once again, we're going to move the heel peel pivot point to the ball of the foot. So press D and hold it, and then V, and then I can snap it right to the ball of the foot. Next, we'll select the toe tap pivot and the heel peel pivot and group them together. This group will be called swivel pivot. This pivot point will also be on the ball of the foot. So hold D, then hold V, and you can snap it right to this point. Now you can see all of the inverse kinematic handles underneath these pivot points. The toe tap pivot and the heel pivot are underneath the swivel pivot. Next, we'll select the swivel pivot and group the entire thing one more time. We'll call this toe tip pivot. And for this one, we're going to snap it to the toe. So press and hold D, then V, and snap it to the toe. Then it can be a good idea to hold D and just move that pivot down to the ground plane, right about there. We're going to make one more group. Select toe tip pivot and then group the entire thing. We'll call this ankle pivot. Ankle pivot is going to go to the ankle. So press and hold D, then hold V, and then we can snap to the ankle. Now we have all these pivots. So if I select ankle pivot and I press E, I can rotate everything at the ankle. If I do toe tip pivot and I rotate forward, I can tip the foot up. If I select swivel pivot, we need to see this from the perspective view, and I rotate in this direction, it swivels the whole foot. Toe tap pivot taps the toe, and then heel pivot will raise the heel up. The last thing we need to do is change the pivot point of the actual foot control. Currently, the foot control pivot is right here in the middle of that circle, but we probably want to have it be a little bit farther back. So if I select the side view, you can see this here. My mesh might be over here. So if I hold D, I can just slide this back to where my mesh is. And if I want to see, I can go ahead and show my leg by pressing Shift H. Now my mesh is there, and you can see now I want to press D, just move that pivot point back here. So now if I select the foot control and press E, it rotates from the back of the foot like we expect. We need to make one more control. So select curves and circle. This puts a circle right down here at the bottom. Then we can rotate it in the Y direction 90 and the X direction 90. If I hold down V, I can snap it right to the knee. And once again, I can select the mesh, press Control H to hide it. I want to snap right here. So select curve, hold V for vertex snapping, snap it to the vertex. I can select the leg again and then press Shift H. Once again, select this circle and we're going to move it straight out. We'll call this knee control. And we want to parent the knee control to the foot control. So middle mouse button, drag it inside the foot control. So I'll select the knee control, then I'll hold Shift and select the ankle. Under the constrain menu, we can go to pole vector. Now, if I look in the perspective view and I grab this knee control and I move it back and forth, you can see how the knee pivots back and forth. This is great, but we want to actually have all of these controls easily accessible. In order to do that, we'll select the foot control over in the channel box, select edit, and then add attributes. We're going to add a few attributes. One of them will be toe tap. Select add. The next one will be heel peel, swivel, toe tip, and then ankle. Now we have these attributes on our foot controller, but they don't do anything. So if I select toe tap and then middle mouse button, nothing happens. That's because we need to use the connection editor to add connections between these pivot points and these attributes. We can go to Window, General Editors, Connection Editor. It has a lot of information in it. Over here on the left, you can select Left Display and then uncheck Show Non-Keyable. Now it only shows the options that are in the channel box. On the left-hand side of the foot control in the connection editor, I can select ankle. Then if I select ankle pivot and I select reload right, once again, if you uncheck show non-keyable, it'll clean up your display. For this one, I want to select rotate X. Now, if I go back to the foot control and I select ankle, you can see how the ankle is moving when I change this attribute. Once again, back in the connection editor, now I'll select toe tip, then select the toe tip pivot, reload the right. Under rotate, select rotate X. Now, if I select foot control and then toe tip, I can middle mouse button and you'll see the toe tip happen. Back in the connection editor, we'll select swivel, then select the swivel pivot in the outliner, reload the right. And this time, Y is pointing up, so we want to rotate Y. Select heel peel in the connection editor, and then heel peel pivot and reload right. Once again, rotate X. Finally, select toe tap on the left, tap pivot in the outliner, reload the right. Then on rotate, we want to rotate X. Next, we'll clean up the rig a little bit. So on the foot control, we do not need to have the scale and visibility keyframeable. So right click and then lock and hide selected. Then select the knee control. And the only thing we need is the translation control. So we can select everything else and then lock and hide selected. So now those aren't keyframeable and it should be a little bit easier to do. Now that we have all of the controls set up and we can control everything from the foot control and our knee control, we actually need these joints to change the mesh and animate it. In order to do that, select the bottom joint. So this is the original joint. Hold shift, select the mesh, then under skin, bind skin. Now, if I select the foot control and I move it, we can see that all of the skin moves with it. Then I can select any of my attributes and move them independently. I can also move the swivel, and you can see how that moves the skin. It's a very powerful way of rigging up your joints and rigs and animating in Autodesk Maya.